Trying is a phase, not a lifestyle. Stop dating effort and marry execution. That's where we've gone wrong. Somewhere along the way, we turned trying into a badge of honor, a participation trophy for people too afraid to commit to the grind. We started applauding effort instead of demanding outcomes, but effort without follow-through is just a distraction. It's a pit stop, not a destination. You can't camp out in trying and expect to see the mountaintop. Trying was meant to get you started, but commitment is what gets you through. Too many of us are in relationships with our dreams, but we treat them like situationships, inconsistent, unstable, halfway in, halfway out. You show up to your vision like it's optional, like it's something you can flirt with. You want success, but you won't propose to the process. You want growth, but you won't marry the discipline. You want results, but you keep dating effort like that's enough to sustain a lifetime of greatness. Effort gets tired, but execution builds momentum. Effort runs on emotions, how you feel today, whether the weather's good, whether people clap for you or not. Execution runs on decision. It's the part of you that shows up when the applause stops. It's the side of you that says, I don't feel like it, but I'm still going to do it. Trying whispers comfort, execution screams commitment. And if you keep staying in the phase of trying, you'll never experience the breakthrough that comes with total surrender to your purpose. You'll always be close, but never crossing over, always almost, but never all in. Think about a marriage. It's not built on one big romantic gesture. It's not a one-time spark. It's consistency. It's doing what you said you'd do even when you no longer feel like it. That's the mindset you need to adopt when it comes to your goals. Stop treating your dreams like side hustles. Stop giving your calling part-time effort. Stop showing up only when it's convenient. If it really matters to you, then marry it. Lock in. Let it cost you. Let it inconvenience you. Let it stretch you. Because on the other side of that discomfort is the version of you you've been praying to become. But as long as you keep saying, I'm trying, you're giving yourself permission to quit. You're giving yourself an exit strategy. You're leaving the back door open every time things get hard. Trying is a comfortable lie we tell ourselves to feel better about not following through. We tell people, I tried, and expect applause. But what did you finish? What did you build? What did you sustain when it stopped feeling exciting? Because the truth is, no one wins on effort alone. You don't get trophies for starting the race. You get them for finishing it. So don't stop at trying. Don't settle for the energy of almost. Don't make peace with halfway. The people who change the world don't live in the neighborhood of trying. They build permanent homes in execution. They live in sacrifice. They breathe consistency. They're not worried about how they feel. They're obsessed with who they're becoming. You have to wake up every morning and make a decision. Am I dating effort or am I married to execution? Am I playing with potential or am I building legacy? It's time to stop getting hyped off of good intentions. Time to stop having emotional affairs with motivation. Motivation fades, feelings change, but the decision to go all in, that's the thing that will rewrite your story. You can't afford to stay in the phase of trying. You've got too much purpose in your bones to flirt with destiny. Trying will have you talking big and living small. Trying will have you dreaming but never delivering. Trying will have you inspired, but execution is what transforms. This generation doesn't lack talent, it lacks follow-through. We've got more access, more tools, more knowledge than any generation before us. We can learn anything on YouTube. We've got motivational clips, masterclasses, ebooks, podcasts. Everything we need to succeed is literally in our pockets. But still, something's missing. It's not intelligence. It's not creativity. It's not passion. It's follow-through. It's the ability to finish what you start. It's the discipline to show up on the days you don't feel like it. It's the character to keep your word when no one's watching. It's the drive to go beyond the high of inspiration and get into the trenches of execution. Talent starts the race, but follow-through breaks the tape. And too many people are stuck at the starting line, talking about what they could do, what they might become, what they're planning to start one day. You got dreams, cool, everybody does. You got skills. That's great, but the real difference between people who talk about winning and people who actually win is follow through. This generation is fast with ideas but slow with consistency. We post the plan before we live the process. We celebrate the announcement before we build the foundation. We confuse exposure with execution, but understand this, nobody cares about what you're about to do. People respect what you've proven you can finish. You might have the most gifted mind in your field, but if you can't stay locked in long enough to turn that gift into something tangible, then what good is it? You've got to ask yourself, what's stopping me from following through? Is it fear? Is it distraction? Is it the need for validation? Because here's the truth, talent might make you popular, but follow through will make you powerful. People who follow through are dangerous because they don't quit when it's boring. They don't fold when it gets hard. They don't need a crowd clapping to keep going. They do it because they made a decision, and that decision became a standard. That standard became a lifestyle, and that lifestyle creates impact. You can have all the potential in the world, but potential without completion is just wasted energy. We've got a culture obsessed with instant results. We want the six-pack without the sweat. We want the $1 million mindset without the $1,000 grind. But greatness doesn't work like that. It's not about how talented you are, it's about how long you're willing to keep showing up. It's about whether you can stay committed when the emotions fade. It's about whether you can push past the dopamine and do the dull work that real progress demands. Anyone can get hyped for a week. Few can stay hungry for a year. Even fewer can stay faithful for a lifetime, and that's why follow through matters, because it's the gap between who you are and who you're called to be. Every time you start something and don't finish, you widen that gap. But every time you see something through, no matter how small, you close it, you grow, you elevate, you transform. It's not about being perfect. It's about being faithful. It's about showing up when it's inconvenient. It's about refusing to let your talent go to waste just because your feelings are unpredictable. You were not born to start and stop. Start and stop. Start and stop. You were built to carry it all the way through. You don't need more inspiration. You need more follow through. You need to become someone who does what they say they'll do. You need to become allergic to quitting. You need to fall in love with the process, not just the promise, because when you become someone who follows through, you separate yourself, you rise above average, you build something that lasts, you become unstoppable. You become the exception. You become the standard. Stop celebrating potential and start honoring results. We've become so obsessed with possibilities that we've forgotten the power of proof. People will clap for someone just because they've got a dream. They'll hype up someone just because they speak well or look the part or have an idea that sounds impressive. But ideas without execution are illusions. Dreams without discipline are just fantasy. You can have all the potential in the world, but if you don't turn that into action, into outcomes, into real, measurable results, then you're just a walking promise with no performance to back it up. Too many of us are comfortable being admired for what we could do instead of being accountable for what we've done. We live in a world where applause comes too early and accountability shows up too late. Potential should not be your final destination. It should be the starting line. It's the raw material, not the masterpiece. Nobody remembers what you were supposed to become. They remember what you built, what you finished, what you left behind. Potential feels good because it's limitless. It doesn't have deadlines. It doesn't expose your flaws. It lets you live in a fantasy world where everything is possible and nothing is required. But results demand proof. Results expose whether you were disciplined enough to follow through. They show whether your character matched your capability. They don't care how much talent you had, they care how much work you put in when no one was watching. Results are honest. They don't lie. They tell the truth about how serious you really are about your goals. Too many people are living on hype, not habits. They've gotten so used to people praising their potential that they don't realize they've been standing still for years. They've been talking about their business idea for 5 years, writing the same first chapter of a book for 3 years, planning the same fitness goal since last New Year. At some point, you've got to move past inspiration and into implementation. At some point, you've got to stop collecting motivational quotes and start creating impact, because no one is coming to hand you greatness. No one is showing up to cash in your potential for results. You've got to do the work. You've got to stop being impressed with who you could be and start becoming who you were born to be. Results change lives. Results open doors. Results separate the ones who talk from the ones who lead. When you deliver consistently, when you prove yourself through action, people stop questioning your worth. You stop having to beg for opportunities because your results speak louder than your resume. That's why you've got to stop settling for compliments and start chasing accomplishments. You've got to stop waiting for the right time and start taking relentless action. Potential makes people feel good, but results change the room when you walk in. They shift the atmosphere. They create legacy. Every time you choose to act instead of dream, you're honoring your potential by turning it into progress. Every time you finish something you started, you take another step out of the world of what if and into the reality of I did. That's where the confidence comes from. That's where the power lies. Not in the promise of who you might become, but in the process of who you are becoming daily through your results. You were not created to live in the shadow of your potential. You were created to walk boldly in the reality of your purpose. The world has heard enough talk. It's time to see the proof. It's time to measure your growth, not by your intentions, but by your outcomes. It's not about what you're capable of, it's about what you're committed to doing every single day until results become your language. Trying gives you an excuse, commitment gives you a legacy. When you live in the mindset of I tried, you always have a way out. You always have a reason to justify quitting. You can look people in the eye and say, at least I gave it a shot. And they'll nod and pat you on the back because trying sounds noble, but deep down, you know it wasn't enough. Deep down, you know that trying is not the same as committing. Trying gives you room to fall short and stay there. Commitment doesn't. Commitment demands everything. It asks you to burn the backup plan. It says there's no plan B, only plan A, all in, no matter what it costs. And that's the difference between people who fade into the background and the ones whose names are remembered long after they're gone. The ones who build legacies aren't the ones who just tried. They're the ones who stayed locked in when it got painful, when it got boring, when it got lonely. They're the ones who stayed the course when the hype wore off and the real work began. Because commitment isn't based on emotion, it's built on decision. And that decision doesn't change just because your feelings do. If your effort is tied to motivation, you'll only show up when things are easy. But if your grind is tied to commitment, you'll show up even when everything in you is screaming to quit. That's where legacy is made. That's where the greats are born, in the trenches, not on the stage. Trying allows you to keep your options open. Commitment forces you to shut the door on every excuse. Trying keeps one foot in comfort. Commitment drags both feet into purpose. And the truth is, as long as you keep giving yourself a way out, you'll never truly break through. You'll always settle for average. You'll always fall short of the greatness that's inside you, not because you weren't good enough, but because you weren't consistent enough. Commitment is the bridge between dreams and destiny. It's what turns potential into performance and performance into power. The people who leave a mark on this world don't get there by chance. They get there because they refuse to quit when quitting was the easiest option on the table. You've got to ask yourself, am I just trying, or am I committed? Am I dipping my toes in the water, or am I diving headfirst into the deep end? Because the deep end is where the growth is. The deep end is where the pain lives, but also where the purpose is revealed. The deep end is where you either sink or you learn to rise. And the people who rise, the ones who soar, are the ones who made a decision and never looked back. They weren't trying it out to see how it felt. They were in it for the long haul. They didn't need perfect conditions. They made progress in the storm. They didn't need applause, they moved in silence. They didn't try their way into legacy, they committed their way into it. Trying may get you started, but only commitment will keep you going when the fuel runs out. Trying may earn you sympathy, but commitment earns you respect. Trying leaves behind regret, commitment leaves behind a trail others can follow. If you want to build something that outlives you, you've got to stop playing with purpose and start building with fire. You've got to stop saying, "I'll see how it goes," and start saying, "This is who I am." Legacy doesn't come from people who try. Legacy comes from people who give everything, who lay it all on the line, who live with the kind of conviction that makes quitting impossible. It's not about trying harder, it's about being fully committed to becoming the person you were designed to be. Effort without endurance is just emotional hype. It's easy to start something when you're excited, when the energy is high and everything feels fresh. It's easy to go hard for a week when people are watching and the lights are on. But what happens when the feeling fades? What happens when the support disappears, when the pain sets in, when the applause dies out? That's where most people stop. Not because they weren't capable, not because they didn't want it, but because they mistook energy for endurance. Effort gets you out of the gate, but only endurance will carry you to the finish line. And too many people are addicted to hype but allergic to hardship. They want the victory without the endurance it takes to earn it. You can put in effort and still fail if that effort isn't consistent. You can give 100% for a moment, but if you don't give 100% when it's dark, when it's heavy, when it's inconvenient, it doesn't mean anything. Real growth doesn't happen during the hype, it happens in the silent reps, in the quiet grind, in the lonely moments when nobody's clapping for you and you're still moving forward. That's what separates dreamers from finishers. That's what separates average from elite. Because effort can be emotional, effort can be loud, it can be flashy, but endurance is quiet. Endurance is that inner voice that says, "I'm not stopping until I've finished what I started." It doesn't need a show, it needs a standard. We live in a generation that glorifies starting. We post about our goals, we share the launch, we get high off the announcements. But starting is never the problem, sustaining is. The grind will test you, the repetition will wear on you, the delays will make you question everything, and if you're only running on effort, you'll tap out the second your mood changes. Endurance is what gives effort power. It's the engine that keeps pushing when effort alone would have already burned out. And the truth is, no matter how hard you go on day 1, it's day 100, day 1000 that defines you. That's where the story is written. You've got to train your mind to be stronger than your feelings. You've got to stop depending on hype to fuel your hustle. Motivation might start the fire, but discipline keeps it burning. Effort might get attention, but endurance earns respect. It's not about how fast you move, it's about how long you're willing to keep showing up. Are you showing up when it's not fun anymore? Are you showing up when it doesn't go your way? That's where endurance is built. That's where true transformation happens. That's the mindset that changes everything. You don't need more hype, you need more grit. You need more focus, more patience, more commitment to the process even when it feels like nothing's changing. Endurance doesn't care about your timeline. Endurance says, as long as it takes, I'm here. Endurance means you're not just chasing a win, you're committed to becoming someone who can handle the weight of it. You don't want a temporary high, you want a lifelong legacy. And that means you've got to push past effort and tap into endurance. You've got to keep moving even when it doesn't make sense. You've got to keep believing even when you don't see the results yet, because the people who endure are the ones who rise. They may not be the most talented, they may not be the flashiest, but they don't quit, they don't fold, they don't need hype to keep going because they're built different. They're built on endurance, forged in fire, tested by time, and that's what gives them the edge. That's what turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. That's what turns a good beginning into a powerful ending. It's not about how loud your start was, it's about how long your heart can hold on when everything tells you to let go. You weren't built to try, you were born to transform. There's something deep inside of you that was never meant to settle for halfway. You weren't put on this earth to merely exist, to go through the motions, to live life on default settings. You were designed with power, with intention, with the kind of purpose that shifts rooms and changes atmospheres. But the problem is, most people never tap into that because they're too busy trying instead of transforming. Trying is about effort. Transformation is about identity. Trying is surface level. Transformation cuts to the core. It's not about doing something different, it's about becoming someone new, and transformation doesn't happen when it's easy. It happens when it's uncomfortable. It happens when you're stretched, broken, tested. It happens when the old you starts fighting to survive while the new you demands to rise. Trying says, "Let me dip my toes in and see how it feels." Transformation says, "Burn the boats, I'm not going back." Trying is temporary. Transformation is total. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for ideal conditions. It interrupts everything. It demands that you shed the old stories, the old excuses, the old habits, and step into something greater. You weren't built to stay the same. That's why stagnation feels so heavy, because your spirit was wired for progress. Your soul was made for momentum. Every time you choose comfort over calling, you feel the weight of what could have been. Every time you say, "I'm trying," instead of declaring, "I'm transforming," you shrink a little more into the background of your own life. But when you make the decision to transform, everything changes. Your thinking changes, your posture changes, your standards change. You stop tolerating the things that used to trap you. You stop entertaining mediocrity like it's a friend and start treating it like the enemy it is. Transformation isn't glamorous. It's not always inspiring. Sometimes it's messy, painful, and brutal. Sometimes it feels like breaking apart more than building up. But in that breaking, in that discomfort, something sacred happens. You start shedding the weight of who you thought you had to be and stepping into who you were always meant to become. You start leading with purpose instead of pressure. You start moving with clarity instead of confusion. And you stop needing motivation to keep going, because your mission becomes your fuel when you understand that you weren't built to just try, that trying is just the invitation, not the destination. You start moving different. You stop looking for shortcuts and start looking for roots. You stop comparing and start becoming. You stop chasing validation and start cultivating value. You stop being impressed with potential and start demanding power. Because people who are transforming don't need to talk about it, they show it. Their actions scream it. Their consistency proves it. You can see it in how they walk, how they talk, how they respond when life punches back. You don't need another attempt. You need a new identity. You need to wake up every day and remind yourself that transformation is not an event, it's a lifestyle. It's not something that happens when the conditions are perfect. It's forged in the fire of discipline, sacrifice, and vision. And you've got everything inside of you to step into it. You've got the fire, you've got the call, you've got the blueprint in your spirit. You weren't built to stay stuck in cycles of trying and quitting, starting and stopping. You were made to break chains. You were made to create change. You were made to become a living, breathing example of what it looks like when someone says, "I refuse to be who I was yesterday," and actually means it. So many people are waiting for a moment to change them. But transformation isn't found in a single moment. It's found in daily decisions. It's found in choosing growth when comfort calls louder. It's found in discipline when distraction is knocking. It's found in your ability to say, "This is who I was, but this is who I am now," and walk in that truth with boldness, with fire, with conviction. Trying might impress people, but transformation impacts generations. Trying might get you noticed for a day, but transformation will position you to lead for a lifetime. Trying is safe, but transformation is sacred because it takes what's broken and turns it into something powerful, purposeful, and permanent.